Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining this e-commerce and digital marketing mentoring session series. My name is Jana Tural, and for this first session, we're going to talk about e-commerce in the Philippines or give you an overview about e-commerce developments in the Philippines. When I designed the presentation for tonight, I have um, two things in mind. First, I would like to enable MSMEs who would like to venture into e-commerce and give them an idea of what are their choices out there. So that's the first thing. Second, if you are an educator or if you are a support person or administrative person and your job entails you to work with MSMEs or help MSMEs, I hope that the session tonight will help you gain an insight of what is happening in the industry so that when you start working with the MSMEs, you will have an idea of what to recommend and what options can you help them explore. And then I divided the topic for tonight into three, no? Or I'm tackling more or less three topics. First is giving you an overview about the industry, what is happening in the industry, and then I'm going to talk about the Philippine e-commerce roadmap, and then I will discuss the challenges and opportunities for people who would like to venture into e-commerce. Okay, so let's get started. E-commerce last November published this infographic that talks about the Philippine e-commerce landscape. It is a very comprehensive infographic, although a lot of information can still be added to it to give more or less an overview as to what is happening insofar as the local e-commerce industry is concerned. As you can see, there are B2B players right now where Filipinos can trade online. When we talk about B2B players, these are business-to-business type of transactions where you deal with companies as your clients and usually cross-border in nature. And you utilize the platform so that the bidding, the purchasing is being done on that platform. And more often than not, the same platform is also being used to source for suppliers. And then you have the unregulated marketplaces or what we refer to as the C2C or consumer to consumer. This is where consumers trade with each other. They're not registered businesses and they are either hobby sellers um, or very, very startup business who are still trying to test whether the markets that they're carrying are working or not. Or maybe people who would like to venture into online business but wants to have a feel whether there is a market or not. And then you have your classifieds, no? Um, where you also have peer-to-peer type of transactions between individuals, but the transaction is done directly with the two persons involved. Unlike in marketplaces where the person selling posts their products online that can be seen by a lot of people and can be purchased through a third-party platform. But in this case, most of the time for P2Ps, the transaction happens between the buyer and the seller directly. And then you also have your cross-border e-commerce where you can sell items online, but your market is international. And then your local marketplaces, the retailers, the deal sites, and you have a lot of verticals in the B2C space depending on what you would like to focus on, whether it's fashion, beauty, food and grocery, women and baby, home and living, electronics and gadgets, lifestyle and travel, among others. And then that is where we get to see all the brands that are selling online. And then, of course, at the back end, in the e-commerce ecosystem, you have people who are doing market research, rendering consulting services, or enablers. Then you have software providers, people who are into marketing from email, price comparisons, affiliate marketing, ad networks, retargeting, search engine optimization, or search engine marketing, cashback type of sites to payment platforms, mobile wallets, logistics from cross-border package forwarding, third-party logistics, on-demand delivery, fulfillment, among other players. And then, of course, you also have, of course, all of them interfacing what we would refer to as your customers. And all of these transactional developments are happening online. No? So this is basically an overview of what we can see right now in the market. And I'm glad that that e-commerce created something like this because I've seen other countries who have presented papers that have something similar to this, but usually on the local space, we don't see that much. But at least now we have something to work with, and more or less it can be improved on. When I tried adding other players, I decided to look into some tools, no, to help me validate the people in the list, because by default, the moment you see this list, you might think of other names that you believe should be included. So, but when deciding whether they should be included or not, you need to have some certain barometer or parameter that justify for their inclusion, no? So, for example, I'm a subscriber of Alexa. I use it as a tool to help me in my competitive research for clients, but at the same time, I also use it to monitor how my website is doing. And you can also run competitive research reports using the platform. So when running the reports and seeing how the players are doing, so for example, according to Alexa, the ranking of Lazada is actually number 6. And then the second site that is ranking well insofar as the Philippines insofar as the Philippine ranking is concerned is goods.ph. But as you can see, Lazada number 6 and then goods.ph is there, no? 460. And then your third placer is greatvalueplus.ph at 970. And the rest are in the thousands rank already. So kahit na you so even if you have many e-commerce marketplace players in the country, but most of them have still not um, um, penetrated a market mass at the level of Lazada. No? So although it's good to see goods.ph having improved their rankings already, and I'm sure they have improved the inventory, customer service, among others, that led to their number 2 ranking at this point. But of course, more can be done. And I hope that more marketplace players, when they enter this stream, and start marketing their products and services online, they would really work hard in building the traffic, because the challenge for a lot of MSMEs right now, like for example, when we go to the provinces and encourage people to join marketplaces, the last thing that you want is to make an MSME join a marketplace that does not have traffic or that does not have enough traffic. Because if they don't have enough traffic, then all the effort the MSME put into insofar as building their presence is concerned will go to waste if they will not be able to reach their potential in terms of marketing their products and services online. But at the same time as well, there is also a need for people who can help MSMEs get listed online. So, for example, if these are indeed the top marketplaces in the country, then we need a situation where you can talk to an entity or talk to a marketplace, where that marketplace will end up syncing you to other marketplaces, so that there's no repetition of effort and it will not be hard for you to monitor all of them. So more or less, I think we're reaching that point that we need those type of services to be able to assist the MSME and make it affordable at the MSME level. Now, looking at the fashion and apparel category, you have the likes of Zalora leading the way at number 81. And then when you look at the other players in this category, Bench actually ranks number 2, although the ranking is at 1,752. So as you can see, Zalora has done quite a good job in terms of marketing um, clothing online, although I think they still have a lot to improve. Just to share with you, I have an upcoming, how do you call that, ano yun? Parang marriage sponsor commitment, no? Or attending a wedding for two students of mine, no? And then they both gave me a requirement that the dress that I must wear must be a long dress in burgundy. So I was really working very hard looking for that dress. But I wasn't successful in finding it from any of the marketplaces. I ended up going to Carimadon to get what I want. And surprisingly, when I went there, I realized that there's a lot of burgundy dresses. And then the salesperson was telling me that actually burgundy is the popular color theme now. And that's when I realized that a lot of the marketplace are actually out of tune or not in touch, no, as to what are the developments. They might be selling clothing, they might be selling outfits for weddings, birthdays, what have you, but they're not necessarily conscious of what is the going trend, to the point that when people start looking for colors that will suit the occasion, they're not able to find it, or even if they find one, it's too limited. Sizes are broken, among others, that instead of getting the deal and getting that purchase, they're not able to get it. And then, of course, all of them are implementing remarketing now, where after visiting a site and you did not purchase, you go to another site. All of a sudden, you see all the ads from that site following you, no, and keep on showing you the dresses that you were looking at. And it's like, I was, I mean, I keep popping up on my screen and I said, ay, sorry, nakabili na ako. No? I bought it na offline because you don't have it. So I felt that those remarketing efforts were futile already. So anyway, um, so I guess the reflection there also is that it's nice to put up marketplaces. It's nice to put up these fashion and apparel marketplaces. But the important thing there is to be updated and in tune and know what's happening on the ground, the trends that are happening on the ground, and making sure that you are able to catch up with them. If you're selling clothing related to weddings, for sponsors, for bridesmaids, among others, make sure that you have the right colors, the trendy colors, and what people are looking for, rather than miss out on the opportunities. Insofar as the classified sites are concerned, looking at the data that we have in Alexa, it shows here that OLX is at number 15, and then Shopee is already at number 251 in terms of ranking, and then Tipid PC at 302. Actually, if you notice that in this space, no, OLX, despite the fact that they're not as noisy as they used to be, remains to be a top favorite among Filipinos whenever they want to sell something online. So, so both Lazada and OLX have their loyal following already. However, it is interesting to note the surge of Shopee. No, the moment I will show you some Alexa charts later on, and then you'll see that Shopee has tremendously improved their online ranking, and I won't be surprised that maybe give if they will be able to continue what they're doing right now and perhaps even do better. I won't be surprised if they will enter the top 100 by the first quarter of next year, or perhaps even sooner. Okay, so maybe what I would like to do is share with you some of the stats that we get to see online. So for example, for the marketplace, um, so as you can see here, no, you have the ranking for the country. So you can see that Lazada is actually at number 6. Okay, and then you have goods.ph at second place in their global rank. It's at 69,024. And then Great Value Plus at 970, Galleon at 1,236. I'm impressed with Galleon kasi when you look at Galleon, actually Galleon is not really selling anything physical goods online on their own. They're more of I don't know how you call it. I don't know, maybe of course, correct me if I'm wrong. There's some sort of an affiliate uh, to Amazon. And then, so when people buy, of course, they mark up a certain amount from what is available on Amazon. If I recall correctly, that would be around 20%. And then when someone purchases through the platform, they also purchase it via Amazon, and then it gets delivered to the Philippines. They take care of the entire logistics, customs, what have you, and then they deliver that to the buyer. So that means that for those of us who would like to buy from Amazon, instead of doing it ourselves and go through the worry of whether your shipment will arrive, will customs hold it, Galleon takes care of that for you. And I think they're doing well already. Looking at this ranking, how much they have improved says a lot in terms of the growing popularity that they have. And then you have Takatak at 1,270 ranking, Halo Halo Mall at 1,533, Go By at 2,695, Kylie PH at 2,940. Actually, I also checked Shop Pinas, Eureka, Marqueta, but of course they are better than Ylinker. I think they're in the rank Shopinas is at the 7,000 rank. And then what's the other one? Maybe I can update this so that we can show the actual data, because I think Y-Linker should not be included here anymore because of that number that we're seeing right now, no? So let's say we update this and remove natin si Y-Linker. And then we put shoppinas.com instead. Okay, so I think we have a better data now. So if you add Shoppinas, and then we change the ranking again to the rank per country to Philippines. And then sort it. Yeah. So Shoppinas is at 7,622 na ranking. Now, another, insofar as fashion is concerned, we got a chance to look at the 10 sites as well and compare the rankings just to have an idea of how competitive this industry is. And when you look at the current ranking for the Philippines, you have Zalora at 81, and then everybody else is quite far na, no? Bench at 1,752, Dress.ph at 2013. And then when you look at the C2C, although the C2C is not that much shape up because there's a wide variety of C2C sites. But what we were able to capture includes Shopee, Relove, OLX, no, and TPPC. And as you can see here, OLX, Shopee, and TPPC are doing quite well. And OLX at 15, and then Shopee surging with their rankings. When you click on Shopee, you will observe that pataas yung trajectory nila, no? From June 23 June 23, at the rank of 234,116, they were able to improve their rank to 54,879. So with the increase in traffic, among others, and meaning they're quite active talaga and doing well with whatever they're doing right now. Okay. All right. So let's continue. For banks, of course, there are online banking services right now being offered to Filipinos where they can shop online and use it to shop online. All BankNet ATMs, most of them can be used to buy products online. You also have telco initiated payment-related services like PayMaya, and you have Globe GCash. And then you have third-party payment services that you can also use to accept payments online. I think what's notable in this list would be Check Me Out, because Check Me Out is a platform that allows you to accept payment, but at the same time, it takes care of the logistic requirements for you, no? So, medyo kakaiba siya, no, in comparison to others. And then you also have various third-party logistics providers from LBC, Send, Post10 Worldwide, Fast Track, JRS Express. But if you're looking for a courier who can handle perishable, either via sea or air, you can look at vCargo as an option. And then you now have express delivery type of services such as Grab Express and GoMoto, who can pick up something for you and get it delivered right away. Although their rates are more or less similar to taxis, but if you really need something that bad and if your customers are willing to pay for it, it can be worth in having an account with also. So those are your industry segment updates. So at this point, I would like to talk about the e-commerce roadmap. I think I did some blooper here because I believe I changed my layout at the last minute to change the color. I didn't realize that it affected how the graphics um, gets positioned with the rest of the text. But maybe before I proceed with that, I could take this opportunity to answer questions from participants. So let's now proceed to the second part of our presentation, which is all about the e-commerce roadmap. Last February, February 2, to be exact, if I recall correctly, the Department of Trade and Industry released the Philippine E-commerce Roadmap 2016 to 2020. And this gives more or less an overview of what is the vision for e-commerce in the Philippines. And that vision is quite big, no? And a lot of people are really working hard to achieve this vision right now. And I guess it is also one of my motivation in terms of doing this online learning series. We have around, I think as of today, around 200 people who signed up for the series, although not all of them can attend the webinar sessions. But a lot have expressed wanting to receive more info and access to the materials so that they can learn. No? But anyway, the target for the Philippine e-commerce roadmap includes the following. So for me, the most important target is this one, which is enabling 100,000 MSMEs to do e-commerce. And that is the reason why you're seeing a lot of road shows happening at the moment, all with the intention of enabling businesses to do e-commerce. So all DTI offices at the moment have their respective quota in terms of their contribution in helping reach that 100,000 target. And then we also want more Filipinos to do e-commerce or to spend money online. We want to see better merchant and consumer protection. We want to see government accepting electronic payments, faster internet, and if you recall correctly, both telcos have committed to the president that they would improve the internet speed, effective cybercrime enforcement, and improved contribution of e-commerce in the GDP from 10% to 25%. So that is more or less the vision. So what have we seen that has happened so far? So at the moment, the government is, they now have a Philippine Internet Broadband Master Plan on how to improve the internet infrastructure. Um, the government has already decided that it will invest in installing the necessary fiber optic network. If I recall correctly, fiber optic yun. Um, so that telcos will end up leasing that from the government rather than wait for the telcos to build it themselves. So, and I think that is a good initiative because that can also help democratize the telco industry and the internet service provider industry because currently internet services are classified as value-added service. It is not regulated. So if the government will be the one to lay out the infrastructure and third-party entities can rent that infrastructure, then that means in the future we can have more service providers in different parts of the country who can serve the requirements of the communities, no, for fast internet. The customs modernization law was passed, and that is why the de minimis value now um, for products that get shipped to the Philippines to be received by consumers is now at 10,000 pesos, no tax. Um, we still have to see whether we're going to have a new telco provider, but in the absence of that, the initiative of the government to provide or to install new internet infrastructure and government investing in it where the telco can rent it, I think is already a good move. And then there's also the free Wi-Fi initiative that is happening right now in different parts of the country, and more parts of the country will be given free Wi-Fi. But usually this is near government establishments. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas also has a national retail payment system initiative that intends to um, come up with more or less a framework, a working framework, so that the cost of payments will be lessened. And they're currently lobbying for a Payment Systems Act so that payment gateway or payment service providers will be more or less regulated. At the moment, payment gateway service providers are not regulated. The consumer protection law is also being updated as well and will include e-commerce. But even if the consumer protection law on e-com, the updated one, even if it's not yet passed, there is an existing regulation. And we will tackle that once we reach Module 6. And we now have a cybercrime implementing rules and regulations. We now have a data privacy commission. So what can we look forward to for 2017? I think for me, my eyes are set on these two developments. First is the simplified tax system. Discussion on simplifying the tax system has already started this year, and we hope that a lot of movements will happen um, by next year, and maybe something crystal clear can get formalized. No? But I think as an industry, um, especially if you're an MSME and you're part of chambers, rotaries, or organization, I hope you can also push for the idea to make electronic invoices and electronic official receipts as a default rather than an exception. Because right now, if you register a business and you register with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, you will be, you can apply for a paper-based receipt. However, if you notice, the Bureau of Internal Revenue requires that all of your reporting be done online already, no? And even your tax payments are being done online already, but your receipts, your invoice, your charge invoice, what have you, are still in paper form. So what what I hope that the simplified tax system will also lead towards to is the electronic official invoice, electronic official receipts, charge invoices, what have you, to come in electronic form by default. And then it's our option if you want to print it and give it to the customer. And that way, it will create a process where clear tax payments and dues will be known to the business and lessen penalties and lessen any accusation of corruption that is tied into when businesses get into trouble for making mistakes in these areas. No? We now have a National Privacy Commission as well, and we now have a Data Privacy IRR. And we're expecting that the National Privacy Commission will be more active as well in coming up with policies and guidelines so that to guide the private sector in reporting breaches on data privacy. Another thing that we have to look into as well, or I hope that will happen next year, is the release of the e-notary guidelines. Because a lot of the business-to-business transactions are not happening at the moment because um, documents have to be submitted notarized, and notarization happens still in manual form. But once the e-notary guidelines gets released, then a lot of these documents can be notarized in electronic form and can help facilitate more B2B transactions in the country, among other developments. No, so we're gradually getting there, and of course, for this to really happen, it requires that all of us, no, including you, who's very interested, who's very eager on e-commerce, to do your part, either helping MSMEs or educating people, no? Or helping them do business online, help them connect to payment platforms, help them connect to logistics platform. Anything that will help them to do business online so that they can reduce their operating costs, but at the same time get more revenue, I think will be helpful towards the achieving the target set in the roadmap. Okay? And then, okay, so before I continue, are there any questions for the Philippine e-commerce roadmap? So what are the business opportunities in e-commerce? I think I'd like to approach this topic by talking about what do we see at the moment, what challenges are we seeing at the moment, and as a result of these challenges, what opportunities can be explored, no? And what opportunities can you play with? No? So it's not something that I will tell you what to do, but more of telling you what is out there, what are the challenges out there. And I hope that the challenges, instead of demotivating you, you will be inspired instead, or have a how do you call it? Have an infusion of ideas that you can explore on to address the challenges. Okay. So according to this AT Kearney report that I've been using since the start of this year, and I still can't get over with, is that the internet penetration in the Philippines has dramatically improved. Of course, even We Are Social has already reported that we are already at the 53 million mark. But at the same time, the We Are Social report and the AT Kearney report are now in sync in saying that 50% of internet users in the Philippines today have shopped online. No? So we are now looking at a buying population of 25 million internet users who have purchased something online. So that is why there's so many e-commerce sites right now, from marketplaces to C2C to P2P to classifieds to social media like Carousel, Facebook, among others. And that's why there's so many third-party logistics providers right now. There's so many payment platforms right now because a lot of things are happening online. Although if you would compare, for me, if I would compare the Christmas season this year versus last year, I don't see that much spam online in terms of people tagging me for something that they're selling. I guess not too many people are doing that anymore, but instead using all of these platforms to promote their products and services. But it is also a signal that the Filipino buyers have matured also, and instead of just relying on social media to look for stuff that they can buy, they now start relying on websites, established websites, to look for products and services that they can purchase from or that they can purchase. Now, one thing that is not in the e-commerce report, insofar as research is concerned, is this report, which is the Philippine E-commerce Index, or what we refer to as the E-commerce Intensity Index. The E-commerce Intensity Index, something that we started back in August 2013 when we started collecting data, is a product of iMetrics Asia Pacific Corporation. At that time, before the start of the report, back in 2012, the estimated volume of e-commerce in the Philippines was only around 5 billion. And I believe that number is unfair because that 5 billion is something that I've been hearing since the year 2000. No? Parang for 3 years, 5 billion and another 5 billion e-commerce sales sa country. When e-commerce is much more than just C2C, there's also a lot of B2B action that is happening insofar as e-commerce is concerned. And hence the creation of this report. Now, when you analyze how big is e-commerce right now, insofar as online engagement in manufacturing, retail, wholesale, and services industry, 39% of revenues or sales in manufacturing, retail, wholesale, and services industry are already happening via e-commerce or done through e-commerce or done through electronic transactions rather than your traditional paper-based PO. A lot of the negotiations and transmission of orders are now happening online. And a lot of companies are also using e-commerce as a means also to purchase products and services. So there's 44%. Now, if you will look at that from a revenue perspective, from where we started in 2013, where there's only around 10% of e-commerce transactions happening in businesses, we now have reached the point that more and more businesses as of from August 2013 of less than 15%, you now have August 2016 to more than 40%. So that means also that a lot of companies are maturing in terms of using e-commerce. No? And then when you look at the purchases can be fluctuating in nature, but when you look at the average from less than 20% in August 2013, we're now looking at, as I said earlier, around 44%, no, this 2016. So there's a big leap in the behavior of businesses in manufacturing, retail, wholesale, and services sector in using e-commerce to purchase products and services. So what is the initial comment that I have whenever I see figures like this? If you remember, I showed you a chart earlier talking about the various e-commerce industry players. You have the marketplaces, you have the P2Ps, what have you. But a lot of these are in nature B2C. Although, of course, like Lazada. Lazada is an example of a business-to-consumer website. But despite that, actually, there's also B2B action happening in Lazada. And the B2B action is happening at the back end, where the marketplaces use the Lazada platform and transact to that platform. And Lazada is the one who transacts with the consumer. And if there's anything that maybe can be a little bit B2B oriented, but I think it's more B2G oriented or G2B oriented, is the PhilJEPS of the government, the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System. No, I'm not sure how many of you have tried the PhilJEPS system so that you can bid for government projects There you join, you look at the government projects, you bid, and then if you get chosen, you win, you receive a contract, and then you deliver the items in the contract. At the moment in the Philippines, at this time, wala tayong ganon. There was a time where we have platforms like Buy and Trade, Catering Exchange, B2B Price Now, what have you. However, B2B has not really taken off in the country. And I think that's also the reason why after 3 years, it seems that the growth in terms of the adoption of e-commerce in corporates is still very slow. I mean, 13, for almost 40% in 2016 from 10% in 2013. It's like growing 10% or doubling a little bit, well, more or less a little bit double every year. But I find that to be very slow. No, nalilitan ako sa kanya. Maybe because there's no rush for it, or maybe walang enabler, or there's nothing out there that could really jumpstart it or spark it, or give it the necessary, strong boost to the point that everyone in the industry will say, I should get onto that and I should use that platform. And I hope that time will come where we will see movements in this space. Um, One of the players that I got the chance to um, meet lately, especially as we prepare for the e-commerce entrepreneur summit in Manila, is Philyes. Although the site is still quite new, they will be launching during the event. Although nag-launch na sila, parang the event is one additional platform for them to promote their services further. But the vision for Philyes is basically to be a platform where buyers and sellers can meet online. And I really hope that this platform will do well. And I really hope that more businesses will use it, because I think we really need more B2B spaces. And for purchasing managers of various corporations, the top 10,000 corporations in the Philippines, to appreciate marketplaces like this. Because right now, what they have is what we call the vendor integrity access. I hope I got that correctly. Let me, the vendor integrity access service, which is part of Dun& and Bradstreet, no? It's under Dun& and Bradstreet. It's being offered also by the Shop Pinas group. But here, when you join and when you get accredited or when you get listed, um, it's really more of an internal listing. So you don't really know what's happening. So that's why I really appreciate yung concept na Philyes na medyo public siya. And I hope that there will be more B2B-like or B2B type of services that will come out online, so that more companies in manufacturing, retail, wholesale, services industry will really embrace it and more transactions to happen in this space. Okay? So what are the various challenges that we have encountered insofar as e-commerce is concerned for 2016? I've been part of a nationwide roadshow and got a chance to visit 16 provinces in the country. Last year, I visited mga 7 and other provinces prior to that, doing all of these e-commerce talks. And usually the challenge is that there's a lack of marketplaces. For example, we go to Butuan, people are excited, they want to do e-commerce, so we started signing up in marketplaces, only to realize that the marketplaces cannot serve them because they cannot do pick-up sa area nila, no? I think parang ang may capability lang yata to serve many players nationwide is Shop Pinas because of the Air 21 network. Although Check Me Out is there, but it's separate from LBCX. It's separate from LBC. So, hindi pa naka-nationwide roll out si LBC for pickup. But I'm hoping that this year, something will happen on that space. No? Kaya, that is why I welcome yung mga initiatives na to make e-commerce accessible to people. So, for example, OneStore.ph, which is an initiative of the Department of Science and Technology. And what OneStore.ph does is all the MSMEs or the small business that they assist, they list them here. So, for example, in OneStore.ph, you will be able to buy black rice, you will be able to buy um, interesting products. Kasi what NeoST does for businesses. For example, MSME ka, yung product mo, kailangan mo ng canning, kailangan mo ng sealing, kailangan mo ng tulong sa packaging. You can seek the assistance of DOST with that. And if you cannot invest in the equipment, DOST has equipment. Doon ka magpapaseal, doon ka magpapa-can, among others, and then you pay a fee to avail of that service. No? And then through One Store, they're now helping these MSMEs that they assisted to be able to market themselves online. So for example, if you go to onestore.ph, they serve MSMEs all the way from Batanes to down south. No? So medyo interesting yung mga products na fini-feature nila. And the platform for onestore.ph, the reason why they are able to serve a lot of the MSMEs is shoppinas.com. And as you know, Shoppinas, being part of the Air21 network, also helps them in doing the necessary payment facilitation and logistics services. Another interesting marketplace that I got the chance to see is shoplocal.ph. This is when we did our roadshow for DTI, and then we had a stopover at Cagayan de Oro City. And like Cagayan, not most of the marketplace don't cater to Cagayan de Oro. So that's why I'm so glad when shoplocal.ph joined the event. They are a local marketplace there, and what they do, when you get the chance to visit their website, they actually offer free delivery within Cagayan de Oro. So they try to put as many Mindanao related delicacies on their website. The site is partly owned by the son yata, yung taga Bandet Pastel, and then they're running this site. So the products that get sold here are also on their showrooms, no? And I was telling them that I think what they need to do in order to evolve is that instead of just limiting themselves in posting the products of the MSME on their website, allow themselves to be the gateway. So meaning the MSME registers with them, and then they put the products also in other marketplaces. But we be the main focal point for the MSME. And this is what I've been telling my students also, na sana gawin nila. Kasi parang the MSME will not be able to join as many marketplaces as they like, no? It's hard to administer all of them. So, kailangan talaga merong magiging integrator. Anyway, another growing shopping site, as I showed to you earlier, is Shopee.ph. I'm curious, nakapag-shopping na ba kayo sa Shopee? Meron na ba nakapag-shopping sa inyo? Okay, si Joanne nakabili sa Shopee. I have a relative who actually sells products online on Shopee, and then one day she asked me, paano kumikita ang Shopee? Sabi ko, bakit mo natanong yun? Bakit ba? Anong problema? Kasi may binibenta akong item, 200 pesos. Okay. Sa commission, sabi niya, hindi mo lang commission eh. Pag may bumili, yung 200 binibigay sa akin. Baka kumikita siya sa delivery. Wala rin eh, kasi free yung delivery. Parang kasama na yata siya doon sa promo for free delivery. So baka yung customer kasi nagbabayad ng free din yung delivery sa customer. So, sabi ko sa kanya, well, what we call that is customer acquisition. No? So, maybe they have budget for advertising, what have you, but instead of spending it on actual ads, they spend instead on acquisition. And that money being spent giving benefits to customers. Parang it's like, remember when Amazon started, they started offering free shipping. So, instead of advertising, they just invested that advertising money and use it on providing free shipping services and serve their customers better. But I think that style also has attracted a lot of former multiply sellers, those who sell via Instagram, now are selling more and more through platforms like Shopee, and because of it also having a very active and dynamic community. Okay. So, all right. In our case, we have an ongoing e-commerce class right now called the Certified E-commerce Specialist Entrepreneur and Professional Program. We're now on our second year, and to be able to help in terms of addressing the demands given in the e-commerce roadmap, I calibrated my program. So for example, in Module 1, I require my students to assist an MSME and help them get listed on marketplaces. So some of them, they were assisted to get listed on Lazada, Marketa, Shoppinas, Shopee, what have you. And then by the time they reach track 2, they need to work on their marketplace already. So actually, they're now here. And that is why next month we have an event called the E-Commerce Entrepreneur Summit, because that is part of their industry exposure requirement. And this is the time also where they need to launch their marketplace. No? So they're currently gearing up for the launch of their marketplaces. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to update that. January 14 is in Cebu, and then January 21 is in Baguio. No? So it's quite challenging, and I'm sure my students are having a tough time, but I hope it's going to be worth their while. But I hope you won't mind that I will share to you what my students have done. Parang proud mama ba, no? So like the Manila team with Jay Balan, he's launching a blog advertiser marketplace. And then I have Jana, who's currently working on a financial service planner marketplace. The Baguio team is currently working on parasabagyo.com, which because e-commerce in Baguio is quite growing, no? A lot of them are selling online already. And then the Cebu team came up with cebumade.com. I believe Windy of Tacloban is also coming up with his own marketplace. And then my two ladies from Davao, one is coming up with a packaging marketplace, and this lady is coming up more with an agriculture marketplace. And they are now doing their respective soft launches, and I look forward to them presenting their actual projects during the e-commerce entrepreneur summit in Manila, Cebu, Baguio, and Davao. But I think for next year, um, I tell people now that they should explore also sponsoring mga e-commerce hackathon type of activities, because we need solutions to urgent problems that we're seeing in our industry. And sometimes to build those solutions can take time and take a lot of research, takes a lot of prototyping. And what hackathons tend to give you is an environment where you put the best minds, or I think at least you put the most of you put people in a room where these people are very optimistic and are very keen to try out new ideas to solve a problem. So for example, I got the chance to handle two hackathons this year. And I'm very thankful to be given the opportunity to manage these hackathons. And the first one was the Fish Hackathon. It's a project of the U.S. Embassy, and Fish Hackathon is a global event. I think si Secretary Kerry was the one who's managing it. And the program of the hackathon is the theme of the hackathon is to save the ocean. And I remember some of the project teams that were being proposed were applications to detect if dynamite fishing was happening, among others. And then recently, a few weeks back, I just handled also the digital Halo Halo hackathon of Affinis Labs and Facebook. And it's a content-driven type of competition. And the intention is to address problems that we're seeing online right now, like fake news, negative discussion, cyberbullying, among others. And the winning entry was a good one as well. No, they were posting an application called Mirror, and Mirror will tell you whether how much of your posts are leaning towards cyberbullying. No, so to make you conscious of the kind of language that you're using in your post and whether you tend to become a cyberbully. So, but anyway, what I realized is that putting people into this type of environments and giving them an interesting problem to solve, a lot of ideas come out, no? And the best ideas thrive and survive. And when you look at the problems that we have in e-commerce, although there are possible solutions out there that you and I can think of, but if we will wait for people like you and I to work on it, it's gonna take a lot of time for them to come out in the open. And a lot of the past hackathons are not really designed for e-commerce. They're more for certain niches. In fact, some of the funding are not really leaning towards e-commerce. But I think with the developments happening right now, 2017 can be a good year for e-commerce hackathons and solve themes like logistics, reducing the cost of payment, cross-border transactions, solving online fraud, among others. So I hope that for those of you who will be able to provide that type of an environment, and if you have funding, if you can organize your own e-commerce hackathon to solve the problems in your community or to bring more people to do business online, I encourage you to do so. Another challenge as well is sustained e-commerce and digital marketing education. Right now, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of outreach initiatives. You have the DICT doing rural impact sourcing, and then they also do Next Wave Cities. I got a chance to be part of the Next Wave Cities some time ago, and now they're more active on rural impact sourcing, where one of my former graduates, si Genesis Unico, is very much a part of that, training people to get projects online as freelancers. DTI just finished a 16-city roadshow this year, but of course, their challenge is that they cannot keep on doing roadshow type. So now they're now at the stage na paano na yung follow through. So they're now partnering with a lot of entities to help with the follow through. So and tapping the negosyo center for that purpose, no? Union Bank and with its consortium partners also has a Eureka Forum, and they're using Eureka Forum as well to educate more MSMEs and get them on board to e-commerce using their platform. Although I think the challenge with Eureka Forum is because Eureka Forum is very platform-oriented, meaning they do the roadshow, but at the end of the day, you have to go on board on their own platform. I think their challenge now is to make sure that their platform has high traffic. No? Kasi when you run the Eureka shops on Alexa, hindi pa siya pumapasok sa Alexa. So, ibig sabihin, wala pa siyang ganong traffic. So when you invest so much on doing the roadshow, spending a lot of money in doing the roadshow, I think that same amount of money should also be infused on marketing para mag-match yung roadshow efforts and the kind of traffic that they need to get in order for the site to be highly visible online and bring more business to the MSMEs that are joining the platform. For Digital Filipino, we have our free e-commerce and digital marketing learning modules that you can access online. I will give you a link. And of course, we just started also our mentoring program in partnership with the Department of Trade and Industry. Actually, we finished all the lessons already last December 13. And my students or the MSMEs that I'm mentoring right now are required to do their all-out marketing and report their results on January 9 in order for them to graduate on January 10. It's like if they don't meet their target, they will not be able to graduate on January 10. So for the online program that we're doing right now, where you are a part of, more or less, I'm also moving towards that concept. We will start giving deadlines next week, the moment we start doing the next module, which is all about online presence creation. And I think another challenge that we also need to be mindful of is the need to accept local and cross-border online payments. The vision of the National Retail Payment System is to be able to provide a framework where when you want to pay, instead of you joining or participating in multiple platforms to be able to pay your bills, get remittances, pay for your loans, investments, get your salary, do EFT, pay your taxes, what have you, you can go to a single system or whatever system that you have right now should be able to connect to a single system where you can do all of them. Kasi di ba, right now, most of the time, if you don't have it in your facility, then you have to go somewhere else to be able to carry out that task. So we're hoping that the National Retail Payment System, the discussions for it started last year. It was launched June this year. And I believe the private sector and the government are already organizing themselves to work towards this direction, including the lobbying for the Payment Systems Act. But we hope to see a more competitive electronic payments environment for 2017. One thing that I'm quite excited of is cross-border payments. No? For example, I like the idea of Payoneer. Payoneer has an office in the Philippines. And what I like about Payoneer is that when you sign up, you will have a US bank account, a Euro bank account, a British pound bank account. And then if you are a Plus Payoneer Plus member, you will also have a Japanese yen bank account. And I think that idea is nice, especially if you think about the concept of in the future where you can log on to a system and then you can accept payments from almost any type of currency and have bank accounts in those type of currency all under one platform. So I hope that more platforms similar to Payoneer will come out. I hope that one day there will be a platform where we can join and then you can have a Malaysian currency bank account, a Philippine peso bank account, an Indonesia bank account, a Thailand bank account, a China bank account, a Brunei bank account, um, and and you can accept payments from this bank account, especially when you do cross-border type of transactions. And in this kind of transactions, cash is king, no? And in fact, for most of the marketplaces, they still say that cash is the cheapest way and the best way to go about it rather than relying on credit cards. So we hope to see more innovative uh, fintech-related solution in this space where it will enable people um, to do cross-border e-commerce. Like for example, I use this platform. I've used the US bank account already to accept payments for a project where the budget is transmitted there, no? And then I realized, okay, now I have a Euro bank account, I have a British pound bank account, and a Japanese yen bank account. What should I do so that I can receive payments from those currency? So it becomes a different situation now. Dati, you have clients, you have a business, you don't have it. Now you have it, but you're not doing anything on that space. So at least it also forces you to think about what are the things that you can do to be able to maximize the platform. Okay? So our challenge is to also empower MSMEs to sell cross-border. So it seems payments, there's the future is bright. There's something out there right now. It even has an office in the Philippines. But how can we encourage more MSMEs to sell cross-border? The Department of Trade and Industry, through the Small and Medium Enterprise Development, is pushing for the creation of the APEC MSME e-commerce marketplace. This is an output, a commitment that they have made under the Boracay Agenda. And the idea behind the APEC MSME Marketplace is to facilitate business networking and matching involving MSMEs in enhancing awareness and feedback on trade regulation and sharing on trade facilitation. This is support, partnership, and capacity building activities for MSMEs. The idea for the marketplace, and this is something that we should expect to come out on 2017, is that let's say you are an MSME and you're selling shoes and you want to be able to go to a marketplace and find out two things. Which local e-commerce player can you join that will allow you to sell overseas? Meaning it can accept international buyers. Because right now, most of the marketplaces in the Philippines can only accept buyers from the Philippines. It cannot accept foreign buyers because they don't do international shipping. So the intention of the APEC MSME e-commerce marketplace project is to list players who can do two things, either of the two. One, the marketplace can help you sell internationally. Two, that marketplace can accept international sellers to sell within their country. So meaning, once this marketplace is up, you join and you want to sell shoes, it will tell you which marketplace in the Philippines can help you sell internationally. And it will also tell you which marketplaces outside of the Philippines can allow you to sell your shoes and get customers internationally. So, of course, that will have to work hand in hand with a cross-border payment platform that has escrow, insurance, among others. And I think that is where competition, we will see a lot of developments insofar as competition is concerned and new trends in the market. So so I hope we can all work together, no? I mean, the intention of this whole series is to really enable MSMEs to do e-commerce. And I hope that your participation in this series will also empower you to help other MSMEs to do the same. Let's work together so that we can enable more MSMEs to sell online and if possible, also do cross-border e-commerce. Okay, so you can download some of the materials that we have right now at bit.ly/ecomlearn. And you can also download additional materials at bit.ly/ecom activation. And then after this webinar session, I'm going to upload this online and then post the handout and make an announcement to the e-commerce advocate project Facebook page once the page is live already so that you can download it. All right? Okay. Sorry.